On page 22 of the Daily Mail, it says 10-minute trial, then the news. Fate that awaits British jihadists in Iraq.
It says that.
Yes, it says British fanatics who traveled to Iraq to fight for Islamic State face death by hanging after trials lasting as little as 10 minutes. A judge has revealed that a number of UK passport holders are awaiting trial after captured on a battlefield, and says he is protecting Britain by sentencing terrorists to death. His comments came as Iraq executed 13 convicted terrorists hours after the country's Prime Minister, Haider al-Abadi, ordered the immediate execution of all jihadists on death row in retaliation for IS killing 8 hostages. Oof.
Well, it has to be the biggest deterrent. It has to be, but certainly the UN has said it is appalled at mass executions. So what they're doing is they're rounding up the IS fighters, the IS terrorists, and they're actually hanging them in large groups. So it shouldn't, shouldn't be tit for tat, is what the UN are saying. These terrorists are out to kill all of those who they feel are not part of them, who don't share the same beliefs as them, which is most of the world. And then there's this retaliation from Iraq.
The problem on the ground is what we need to recognize, even the United Nations, is that different nations are dealing with different problems at any given time.
Yes.
In Iraq now, they need desperate measures to deal with terrible situations like this. In this part of the world, we don't have that sort of terrible situation on our hands.
There's just a few along the way.
Just a few that we can contend,
manage.
we can manage. But when you're looking at the battlefield, Syria, Iraq, all those places, they need to nip this thing in the bud immediately. And to do so, to discourage all these British passport holders from coming to join IS as something they consider fashionable, it's better to, as a deterrent. And I believe if any of these criminals have actually killed people, they should take them out on the battlefield and not allow them to even come back here.
It's interesting, though, that a spokesman for the Supreme Judicial Council he has tried hundreds of cases involving ISIS at the Central Criminal Court in Baghdad and sentenced many to death. The judge said some fighters with British passports had already been sentenced, and it was possible they had been given the death penalty. More cases are to be completed, he said. His comments are the first public confirmation that there are UK fighters in Iraqi jails. The Foreign Office in London said it was not aware of the cases mentioned, arguing that British members of ISIS deserve to die. Mr. Berkador said the punishment, as much as it seems strong, will affect the security of your country. He said, I'm sure there's hundreds of people in Britain at this moment thinking of committing similar crimes. That's why we, as Iraqis, if we're tough in sentencing, these people will think thoroughly before taking any action. It says some 850 UK citizens are believed to have travelled to Iraq and Syria to fight with ISIS, and hundreds are still thought to be there. So they're saying, if we're holding this up as an example, and maybe possible fighters will think twice because they know what their fate will be. They're being warned in advance.
They are, and because the ISIS themselves made the whole thing look attractive. They showed their fighters with AK-47 posing and then telling the young boys, "Listen, this is the utopia you're looking for."
Girls swooning after them, these ISIS brides.
ISIS brides going over there, but it's not. When they finally arrive at the battlefield, then they discover that it's not as easy as they think, because these guys are manipulative. They take advantage of you. They mess your life up. They order you to do things you don't want to do. And that's when reality hits a lot of these young people.
Well, it says the judge in the case told the Daily Mail the savage and brutal crimes these people have committed, killing people in cold blood, they deserve the maximum punishment. A third judge said, you in the UK can put a terrorist in jail for the rest of his life and you can spend money on him. We don't have those resources. Putting them in jail instead of executing them could lead to them running away. They're not only threatening Iraq. If they fled, they would threaten the whole of Europe, including Britain. For that reason, the terrorists will be eliminated here. Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense in Iraq when they have a lot of problems on their hands.
Yeah.
And then the trial, 10 minutes trial. Over here, you have judges arguing lawyers arguing for years over just one case that is simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
It's like those silly boys who killed Lee Rigby the other day. You saw them at the crime site. This should be simple, straightforward operation, but you have lawyers back and forth, and it costs a lot of money. To keep one prisoner locked up in jail, that's £40,000. Even the poorest guys working in the system, arranging things on the shelf, don't even earn up to 15,000 or you're up to 20,000. Now you're keeping one man in jail for 40,000, and this is a criminal who has killed all the people. It doesn't make sense at all.